this video we're going to talk about the Junos CLI, basically about how can we move and add configuration. So what do I mean by moving in the Junos configuration? Well, first we have to understand that the Junos configuration, it's based on levels. So everything is everything is classified into levels and classified into areas. So the idea is that, for example, if you have all your interface configurations are going to be on their interface. So that way, it's much simpler, it's much easier. So if you know you're looking for, or you know you need to change, for example, something related to the interface, you go into the interface level. So let's look at this graphic. Let's look at this with the diagram. So basically, we have the root, and then we have some levels. So it's basically like I said, everything is classified under what the function is. So, and under those levels we have more levels. So think of it as like a file system. You can think of it like directories. You can think of it like a tree. So for example, like I said before, let's say that there's many levels depending on the configuration, depending on whatever options you actually have enabled. But, let's just talk about a few. For example, you could have like firewalls, or you can have like firewall, you can have system, you can have interfaces, and you can have different things like routing options. So what do I mean by moving? What do I mean by moving here? I mean basically the idea is that you need to be able, you could do it in different ways. You could stay basically here on the top, and you can stay on the top and you can do commands under those levels without actually moving. So for example, let's say that you want to add some firewall filters. So you could do set firewall filter. You could do many options that way. But if you want to do under the firewall filter, if you're going to do 50 commands, it means you're going to have to add all of that there, which is a little inefficient. So there are some commands that help us navigate this structure so we can configure faster and we can apply configuration in a more efficient way. So those are the commands mentioned here. So edit, op, top, exit, set, and insert. So how these commands help us? This command help us, for example, if we're going to move on the edit. Basically, edit works as, if you come from the file system world, if you have that understanding, edit works as CD, so as change directory. If you think of this like levels or directories, then edit works in that fashion. So if you do something, for example, like edit system services, the system will move you to that particular level, and then you can do configuration from there. So it's much simpler, it's much faster, and then you have options like top and you have options like op, which serve to, for example, if you do op, let's continue with system services. If you're here and you do the command op, the system will move you to system. So the Junos CLI will move you to system. So now you're going to be in this level and you can continue working there, or you can move to another level, whether up or down. Up also takes numbers, takes parameters, which is useful because if you're, let's say, in the interface and you're 5 levels down and you want to move 3 levels, you can just do up 3, and it will move you 3 levels up to 3. The same way, if you're basically, let's say you're 10 levels down and you just want to move to the root of the configuration, you can just do top, and it will move you basically to the top. And another interesting thing is you can mix them up. You can actually add them on the same command. So you can do something, let's say you are 10 levels down the interfaces, or you are in system services. You could do something like, let's say you are 10 levels down the interfaces, you could do something like top, edit, system services. And that will do something like this. That will move you from wherever you are here to the system services level, which is very useful. And with practice, it gives us a lot of speed and a lot of flexibility doing configuration on the CLI. So a clear way or an easy way of understanding this is to actually see it. On the CLI. So let's go to the router. So if we go, yeah, I have here a router with very little configuration where we can test this out. And if you do show configuration, you can actually see the structure. You can actually see how the configuration is structured. So like I said before, you can see I have here interfaces. So everything that's related to the interface is going to be under that level. So we can see here that we have interfaces, EM5, unit 0, family init, and finally the address, which is the leaf of that tree. If we do something like, if we do edit, we can do edit EM5, we can do edit interfaces. If I go into configuration mode, that will work better. You edit interfaces EM5, unit 0, family init. So there's two things to see here, two important details to see here. The first thing is that the system always tells you, that's an old drawing there, sorry about that. So the first thing to see here is that the system is telling you where you are at the moment. So as soon as we went into the configuration mode, we can see that the system is telling us, look, you're at the top of the configuration. When we do the edit command to interfaces EM5 unit 0 family init, now we can see that prompt, that change, and the system is now telling us that we are in that particular level of the configuration. And we can see it with the context-sensitive help. If we do something like set and we do interrogation, we'll see what options we have there that are completely related to that particular area in the configuration. So because we are so far down the level, we can see that if we do set interrogation, we have very, very little options, very few options. So imagine that I wanted to change the MTU on this interface. So we do something like set MTU and the value. If I wanted to do that from the root of the configuration, I would have to do set interfaces EM5 unit 0 family init MTU and the number. So this is very useful if you want to, like I said before, if, for example, you're on the firewall and you want to do 50 commands on the firewall, you can just go into the firewall section and just start doing your commands there, and you won't have to type firewall, or you won't have to type, imagine here, that if I wanted to do 10 commands within family init, I won't have to type all of that, and it can just configure a lot faster. I can just go into there, to that level, and go set this, that, and the other, without having to type the entire thing. So that's what we get there. And we can actually see, let's see some of the op functionality here. So we do op, we can see how that changed. We can see here that, again, the system is telling us you went up a level, and it reflects the change there. And we can see it. And we can see it if, again, we can just continue to go down. We can go family init again, and we come back to the same place that we were. We can do op 3, and you see that the system reflects that change. We can then do things like, let's try the top. We can do top without anything else. We can see that we went back to the root of the configuration. Let's try mixing top with edit. So you can see what, like with one single command, you can move faster and you can move better to where you want to go. So if you do top edit system services, you can actually see how we went from one level to the other level in a single command. So very fast, very quick, very easy. And with practice, this turns out to be quite a time saver. If you spend a lot of time doing configuration, you can very easily move around. So as you saw before, set is basically the way we change configuration. So we use set to tell the system what values things should have. Let's see an example of it here. Let's say we want to add an IP to this particular interface. So we can use set. So we use set. Remember to use context-sensitive help if you're not sure what the command is. So we can tell set address, and this already has one IP address, so we can add another one. without any issue. So let's say we want to add 10.10.10/24. Do show compare to see what's the difference. And we can see that with that command, we'll add that particular configuration. And that's basically the function of set. Every single change you do under Junos requires you to do set, whatever the name of the command is, or the variable is. And finally, our last command is insert. So to understand, insert serves to change the order of things. So what do I mean by that? Think, for example, if you have a firewall filter, and you have a firewall filter and it has, let's say, 2 terms, or 3 terms, or whatever amount of terms it has, and perhaps you when you typed the configuration, you made a mistake. So you had one term that you wanted, you have terms 1, 2, and 3, and the order is wrong. So you want to have term 3 or 2 before 1. So in other operating systems, what you would do is that you would probably delete it, put it in a text editor, modify the order, and then put it back in. And that's fine, and you can do that here as well, but Juniper gives an option that we can do that in a faster way. So let's see an example of that. Let's go ahead and I mentioned before a firewall filter, so let's use that as an example. So let's go ahead. I'm going to create a firewall filter. Let's go to the top, and let's create a firewall filter called insert example. We'll create a term called, let's put up. Let's create another term called down. So now if I do show compare, besides the IP address that we added before, you can see here that it's telling me you have here a firewall filter called insert example with a term called up and with a term called down. So order matters here. So we see that this is basically number 1, here is basically number 2. So let's say that was a mistake and we want to alter the order here. So we can do insert to fix that. So we'll use insert filter. We can use tab to help us out there. So turn down before turn up. And basically what we're telling them is, I want to have turn down before turn up in the firewall filter called insert example. So we do show compare. We can see if that order changed, and we can see it here. We can see that now down is number 1 and up is number 2. So we have here the old, how it was before. So see how easy it was to fix that little mistake. And this is a very simple firewall filter. It has nothing configured, but imagine this was actually a production. This was actually a production example. It was a production firewall filter. It can have so many configurations that if you follow the old approach of actually grabbing it, putting it on a text editor, having to copy paste, you can actually make mistakes. You can miss something. The copy paste can actually go wrong, and you can have issues if you don't notice. If imagine that has 200 lines or something like that, it's going to be very hard to spot. Well, we can actually do it with this. So Junos gives us this flexibility to do it within the CLI without having to do anything or the copy paste. So it's very nice and very flexible. And like everything with practice, this requires practice, so we remember all the options and we even remember that we have it available. But when you do, it's very useful and highly recommended. So let's summarize. So basically, we saw how to move within the levels of the configuration. We saw how we can affect the configuration of the device using set, and we saw how we can change the order of statements using insert. So overall, that would be my recommendation. Practice so you get the hang of it. But it's very useful, very powerful tools we have on the Junos CLI. So thank you, everyone.